As we first arrived in Cuba, our tour guide led us to the central square of Santiago de Cuba called Parque Céspedes, also known as Plaza de Armas. The centerpiece of the plaza is Catedral Asunción. The Spanish built a church in the 15th century as a twin of Catedral Asunción in Barcoa on the eastern coast of Cuba. After the square, we were led to a small shop off the side of the plaza. This shop turned out to be the only physical shop we visited while in Santiago de Cuba. In the shop, there were Cuban cigars, Cuban rum, as well as other souvenirs. I was behind the counter with some souvenirs, and I ended up helping the women process some of the transactions. It was fascinating being behind the counter as the workers wrote down all of their transactions instead of using the computer that was beside them. Our group then drove through the streets of Santiago de Cuba. The city was founded by the Spanish in 1515 and is known as the home of rum, sun, and revolution. The vibrant city is known for its Afro-Cuban culture and cuisine, as well as its many important residents, such as Diego Velázquez, who made this city his second capital, Fidel Castro, who launched his communist revolution from here, as well as Bacardi, who established his first rum factory here. This beautiful city also is the home of many of the musicians in the Buena Vista Social Club. Something to note here are the truck-like vehicles that stand out from the other cars. These trucks are called camiones, and they act as a local bus system for the residents, and they can transport the residents throughout the country. Next, we can see some of the famous son dancers, as well as some of our students. Son is a common and famous Cuban dance from which salsa is derived, and can be seen at many of the local restaurants. It is due to son that many African instruments came to light in Havana. These instruments expose the deep currents of African rhythms in Cuba brought over by the slaves on their painful journey from Africa. The son originated from the eastern regions of Cuba known as the Oriente province. This was probably due to an influence of the freed African slaves that arrived shortly after the emancipation from the French in Hispaniola. The dancers then invited the study abroad group to dance son, mambo, as well as many other types of dances. These dance moves will later be used on our journey back on board the Adonia, as well as back in the US. Our last stop was Castillo de Morro, also known as Castillo de San Pedro de la Roca. This citadel has guarded the entrance to Santiago de Cuba Bay since 1638. This exceptional fortress was constructed in response to the aggressive pirate and political rivalries in the Caribbean during the 17th and 18th centuries. Today, they are a great example of military engineering fitted for the European colonial powers in the Caribbean. You can see the gorgeous and mighty Sierra Maestra mountains in the background. The castle is built on the small opening between the Santiago de Cuba Bay and the Caribbean Sea. It also features 4 separate tiers, and to this day, it is the best and only way to defend Santiago de Cuba from sea attacks. As we were walking back to our bus, we noticed how narrow the streets were, as well as the age of some of the cars in the city. We also noticed the prevalence of motorcycles, as well as the bright colors of the city houses.